Absolutely, man. So, Jim, why don't we just get started? Why don't you jump right in and kind of give us your background in the game? Where you played, the whole litany.
Sure. I grew up in Louisville, Kentucky. I was fortunate enough to get drafted by the Atlanta Braves in the fourth round in way back in 1995. I guess I feel old when I say that, but
That's not that old.
so the kids keep me young anyway.
Absolutely.
Fortunate enough to make it to the big leagues, pitched with Milwaukee and San Diego in the big leagues. Unfortunately, I tore my labrum, which happens. And when I got, I wasn't able to fully get back to 100% with the labrum tear. And when I got done out of baseball, I kind of looked back and said, this game has given me a lot. What interests me? I was before my draft, I was fortunate enough to sign and commit to Clemson University, and that's Tim Corbin was a recruiting coordinator back then. Now he's the head coach at Vandy, and Jack Leggett and all those guys. And I just looked at those guys and said, man, what an opportunity those guys have to make an impact and change some kids' paths and help some other kids' paths. So after playing, I kind of dabbled in giving lessons to kids, kind of one-on-one pitching lessons. Moved from Louisville, Kentucky, where I went to Trinity High School, and moved to Tampa after my playing career was over. Started giving lessons one-on-one at a Little League. I kind of rented out one batting cage and one pitcher's mound at the Little League. One or two lessons kind of turned into 15 or 20, and more lessons kind of said, hey, I'm going to go purchase a building, get out of the Little League and, start the team thing. So kind of one team has grown into 15 to 18 teams from 8 to 18. We do on purpose try to keep it relatively small. I think that the biggest asset in our program is we have quality coaching from top to bottom. We're able to put on coaches clinics for our coaches and keep things, universal from 8 to 18, and kind of build them from the ground up as I feel like that's part of some of the game, part of the game that's missing, that I think that we are able to kind of keep within our program by keeping it a little bit on the smaller scale. Being the smaller scale, I don't think that we're smaller scale on the national stage.
Yep.
We've been fortunate enough over the last 3 years to have every single kid in our program have the ability to go on and play college baseball. A couple of them have decided, academically, I want to go a different route. Yep. But when the national average is 6.7% and we have 100% over the last 3 years, that's kind of what our program is built on. So I think we've done a really good job of that. Obviously our players kind of have a buy-in to our process and our focus of kind of building culture and building winning as a team instead of the individual. In today's showcase world, I think a lot of kids really get into the me. But testament to our families and our players, our guys kind of buy into the team and understanding that, if the team has success, they'll have success and they'll have the ability to go on and play beyond.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point. And something that's definitely refreshing to hear. Two things that kind of stood out to me there, Jim. You talked about your coaching staff. I'd love to hear more about, where you get your coaches from, how long they've been with you, some of them, and a little bit more about the coaching education that you do. That's question one. So, and then question two, piggybacking on that, you talk about player buy-in and, kids and families, kind of taking that team over me mentality. Is there anything specific that you do in your program to really drive that home to kids and families?
Sure. First of all, our coaching staff is awesome. Myself kind of started and kind of did this, and I kind of reached out to Chris Wilkin, who's the head coach at Bloomingdale High School. I think Chris has been with, whether it's been giving lessons or, hey, Chris, will you come out and kind of give a catching, camp or drills for our catchers, or, kind of mix in and, do some infield stuff. Chris played professionally, went to University of Houston. So he played Division I baseball, went on and played in the Orioles organization for 5 or 6 years. So his background in pro ball is there. He's been with me probably, on and off with the lessons and camps and that sort of thing, probably 6 to 8 years. He's our 16U Wilkin manager. We have Anthony Macaluso, who his dad is a legend in Tampa, has coached King High School for over 50 years. And Anthony is his son, who played college baseball, has been in our program for 3 or 4 years now, understands our culture and really enjoys kind of getting out there with, some of the younger kids in our program at 15. We have Kennedy Duran, who has also been in the Tampa Hillsborough County system coaching high school baseball. He's at Sumner High School. It's a new high school. He was at Leonard High School before and kind of built that program from scratch when it was a new school. And now Sumner, I believe, is in their 3rd year of being a high school. And last year he went to the regional finals with Sumner. So pretty good build very quickly at Sumner. His assistant coach, Jacob Ramos, is also in our program, coaches one of our teams. And at the younger ages, we have guys, Paul Davis, who played college baseball, and other coaches throughout, 8, 9, 10, all the way up that have kind of, played the game. Some of them played football in college. Some of them played basketball in college. A lot of them played college baseball. Almost all of them have played college baseball. So we've been very fortunate to kind of grow at a small enough rate to kind of handpick coaches to kind of be a part of our program. What's cool now is we have parents and players that have graduated from Ostingers, gone on and played college baseball. Dads that want to come back and have played the game and want to be a part of our program, which is really cool. And then players, they know what our program is. They were a part of it. They built it from the ground up, and they want to kind of keep pushing that, envelope. And seeing what I think Ostingers did for them in growing up and becoming a man and, owning your game, that want to come back and give back to their kids and kids at different ages. So that's kind of our coaching carousel, so to speak. And then coaches clinics, we give clinics to leagues throughout the area. That's pretty cool. It's nice to kind of go out and, I think teaching hitting at a coaching clinic is difficult. Teaching pitching is difficult. I think you can kind of teach some absolutes of, weight transfer and trying to really hone in on very small things that they need to do, kind of absolutes and mechanics. But we kind of take the coaching clinic to a different route. We try to teach, if nothing different than teaching them how to run a productive practice.
Really
I think at the younger ages, you run 10 kids out to shortstop and you just hit them ground ball after ground ball. And to be honest, if that was me, I would get bored with the game. So we try to teach them, different drills and being able to split up groups of kids in different areas and work on, specific fundamentals. And then just an overall philosophy that kind of in our program started with me, but more than just me growing up. My dad was kind of my coach growing up through 12, 13 years old. And then I was fortunate enough to play in a travel ball program out of Lexington, Kentucky, which is about an hour and a half from my house. Just really honing in on, guys, if we do this together and we build this team unity, You know, links of a chain connected are a whole lot better than a bunch of individual links that aren't really usable if not linked together. So I think that that's what we kind of teach. We don't wear our names on the back of our uniforms. Just kind of, we don't have walk up music. Every kid wears short pants. Every kid wears stirrups. Just I cringe when people say, "Oh, you're really, really old school," because we are a little bit old school in our thought process, but we're definitely in our teaching philosophies. We're very much on the cutting edge of, you know, where the game is going, and where it has gone with analytics. I think we're on the cutting edge with that with our players. So I think we're a mix of old school and new school. And that's kind of where the foundation of our program and our parents kind of buy in and believe.
That's awesome. So if I'm a player in the Ostingers Academy and playing for one of your teams, and let's talk about the high school age group first. Like, what does that look like for me? Obviously, playing in tournaments and events, but how much training do you guys do outside of that? What's a typical season look like if I'm going to come play for you?
Yeah, 95 to 100% of our kids are local kids. I could say 100% probably 3 or 4 years ago. Even 2 years ago, we were 100% of our kids were from Hillsborough, the tri-county area of Hillsborough County, Tampa. Have had some players from Venice High School come up and play that have been very good players. We've got some kids from Pasco County, obviously Polk County. So those counties represent 95 to 100% of our players. Because of that, we're able to kind of get practice, which a lot of programs aren't able to do just because they have kids coming from all over the country. Our program, once the high school season ends, we start doing pitching clinics and pitching bullpens, as a group, but a lot of individual instruction in those bullpens that start in the month of May when high school teams start, making the high school playoffs or not making the new high school playoff system. So we ramp up then for our high school guys. We have Saturday and Sunday extended practices for those teams. So if you are out of the area, you can come up and, we do it on the weekends to where, the traffic's not terrible to get here. But we run those practices and we teach bunt plays and we teach first and third plays. And, obviously we teach some fundamentals, but, that's when we can kind of start breaking down, if a kid's swing is a little bit off, we kind of understand, hey, this is what a college coach is looking for. You're losing a little bit of power because of this or that, or, as a pitcher, have you thought about, a specific, mechanic to help that kid individually. So I think there's a lot of hands-on in our program that kind of builds around, that team unity, and it helps us get our players together a little bit more often. So those practices kind of start in May. We start our, kind of like every other travel ball team, we start our travel ball schedule at the very first part of June. But throughout the scheduled events, we still continue to have practices here and there. And that's designed, yes, at this age, you should be getting your stuff done on your own, going and hitting and going and getting your bullpens and long tossing and getting to the gym. All those things are set in that. But getting together as a team, I don't think that there's no substitute for, that team bonding, practice, getting some sprints in together, getting out there on the dog days of the summer when it's, you walk outside and you start sweating, but, we get out there and, run through some drills and run through some plays and get some BP and get some ground balls together. And that's kind of how we go throughout the summer.
Amazing. So you guys have had some, obviously great success in some of the biggest events that are out there on the travel ball circuit. Do you have any specific stories that kind of stick out from any of those runs that you guys have gone on in the last couple of years that are, fun anecdotal type of things, from whether it was in Jupiter or in Atlanta for the WWBA?
I I like to look back. Obviously, those wins are huge. Just kind of thinking of, we won Jupiter, which is a perfect game. The biggest event out there, in 2021, in kind of that October timeframe. In 2022, a lot of those same kids went on to win the 17U WWBA in Atlanta, and then turned around a week and a half later and won the PBR national tournament that had another 150, 175 teams in there. Anecdotally, I think, we got a little bit of weight, honestly, last summer. That summer team, we started the summer like 5-5, very average. We won our first game in Atlanta. We lost our second game in Atlanta, and it was just very uncharacteristic of who we are. We didn't throw strikes, and we booted the ball around, and team bunted on us a couple of times, and we didn't make, just routine bunt play, situational things that just were uncharacteristic of who we were. Kind of after the game, I kind of walked the guys down the foul line. We were the last game of the day, so there was not another team coming on the field. And I just said, guys, all of you guys have been in this program for at least 3 or 4 years. Some of you guys have been in this program since you were 8 or 9. What do you guys think I'm going to say? First thing out of their mouth is, oh, you're going to rip us a new one. And, you're going to tell us, we aren't very good. And several other things that kind of come out. And I said, okay, you guys are good. I'll see you guys tomorrow, and just walked off. So I think that they were prepared for, like, hey, coaches, rightfully so, coach is going to get in us a little bit. But they knew. I just kind of left it at that and just said, hey, this is you guys. And I walked away. I could kind of see they stayed around and talked for 2 or 3 more minutes. After that kind of non-post game speech, we went 25-0-1 the rest of the summer. So that's a pretty good run against a lot of really quality teams. As you've had really good teams in the past and coached deep into tournaments. You got to get a little lucky. You got, everything has to kind of fall in place, and it did for us. When you win 4 games in a day, I don't care how many kids are on your roster. I don't care, how many bottles of water the parents bring to the dugout to kind of refill and recharge, and things that we don't want parents to do, but they see us starting to drag, and it's 140 degrees on that turf. It's just it comes to who has the biggest heart. You go out there and play 4 games in a day, and then you win those 4, and then the next day you got to come back and win 2 more. It's just, you got to go home, recharge, and come back out, and who has the biggest heart is going to prevail in those situations. And our 2023 class has been special. I don't know that I'll ever see a team of kids in a game kind of gel together like those guys did, day in and day out. It wasn't just a fluke one time. It was every single day. Every kid had their back. So kudos to those guys.
You said it great. I mean, I think one thing that I always used to tell my guys as we got deeper into those events is, the team with the most focus and energy is going to win today, not necessarily the most talented team. And, that's the great thing about baseball. It's, I think, why we all fell in love with it, is that it is an underdog sport. Anybody can beat anybody on any day. And it's something that, in the travel ball landscape is really fun, right? And I think that you kind of see that across the board, the programs that do have success. It starts at the top. It starts with the guys that are, setting the tone. But unless you have buy-in from the players, it's a moot point. And then one thing, Pat Casey, I've learned from Pat and talking to him, during his runs, in the 2000s, he learned to actually stand at the other side of the dugout during games. And he says, one of his things that he says all the time is, practices are for coaches and the games are for players, right? And if we've done our job as coaches, we should let the players play in the game. And, just that story that you said about these guys that have been part of your program for so long, you had trained them, they knew what to expect from you. So you didn't even have to say it, right? You just went down there And, so that's a reflection of, like you said, that the hours and hours, right, that have been put in before that. It wasn't just a fluke, like you said, right? These things happen for a reason. Really, really cool, Jim. I love it. So we talked about the high school age group. Let's talk about the youth a little bit. What do the schedules look like there? What do the practice regimes look like there? Regiments, excuse me. What's the difference between the high school and the youth program for you?
Yeah, the youth program is, the cool thing about them is they get two practices a week, 2 hours a week. So they're on the field with each other, with their coaches, 4 hours a week. Obviously, if they're playing tournaments on the weekends, that's kind of how those guys go about it. We're fortunate enough to kind of work out of the Plant City, Florida area. Plant City's kind of has a working agreement with us right now that we have the old Cincinnati Reds spring training complex that they were here in the 80s and 90s. And that complex has been USSSA softball, the national headquarters for the USSSA softball for a while. And it's been several different things throughout the course of, the decades. But, I would drive by there at night and go, man, that's a really nice complex that the lights are never on at that place. Like no one's ever using it. And, was able to sit down with the mayor of Plant City and the boards and the Parks and Rec department in Plant City, and kind of came up with an agreement that, that complex, obviously it's used every weekend for tournaments, but during the week, our program has been fortunate enough to be able to get in there and kind of make that place our home, which is really cool. So, on Mondays and Wednesdays, we have 5 teams out there practicing. Everybody's got their own field, but at certain times of the year, I'll bring them all together, and the 8-year-olds will stretch with the 14-year-olds, and go through some drills. Nothing elaborate, but let that 8-year-old feel like, oh wow, I'm around these 14-year-old guys who are huge and getting ready to go into high school, and and on the flip side of that, the 14-year-olds kind of get to mentor an 8-year-old or a 9-year-old. And I think that's really important. I think it's something that, I think you learn by teaching. And, when some of the, we're teaching a 14-year-old how to field a ground ball, and, making sure his hands are out front and working from, back to front and all those things, when they start teaching it, they start to realize, man, this isn't as easy as it looks. When coach is out there saying, do it like this, when I'm trying to teach an 8-year-old how to do it, it becomes like a more of a reality for them. So, a little bit of that just camaraderie, which kind of builds our brand, from the ground up, and kind of gets those kids to kind of start buying in. When the 8-year-old or 9-year-old practice is done, almost every single night they'll walk over and kind of watch the 14s and the 13s hit. And sometimes we'll even get the high school kids out there, and watch, they'll watch them take BP and learn all of how far the ball goes and all those things. But it kind of builds them wanting to be a part of the Ostinger program. And they can see, hey, in a few years, if I keep working at this, that's where I'm going to be. Yeah. And then having the high school kids come down and run camps from time to time. And, even our kids that have gone on and played in college ball, and heck, I'm working with JJ Negro right now. He's a AA pitcher for the Braves organization, and he wants to be a part of us when he's home. We'll work out early in the afternoon, and he'll throw a pin, or we'll work on something mechanically, and he'll come back and help run a pitcher's camp at night. To me, that's kind of what we are. Just kind of that from within, smaller knit group, but very close knit, and anybody will help anybody at any age.
I got 2 more questions for you. So
sure.
You said you've been doing this for 12 or 13 years. If you could go back 12 or 13 years and tell yourself at the beginning a word of advice or something like that, if you were just starting the program, is there anything different, or is there any word of advice that you would give yourself back then? That's question number 1. And then question number 2 is, obviously we're here, excited to have you as part of the Diamond Allegiance, but would just love to get your thoughts on your vision for the Diamond Allegiance and the reason that you decided to bring such a marquee organization into what we're doing.
I think if I were to tell, the younger self, back 12 years ago, we could all do something better, right? I feel like I've done a really good job of trying to keep it small. But I probably would have branched out to make it a little bit bigger sooner. And not because we've had success recently to make it bigger, but I think people look at Ostingers and they think, oh gosh, man, they only have one team. So it's really hard to make that team. So I'm not even going to go try out for those guys. I think that's a little bit of stigma that we have as a program, which is definitely not a true statement. We have gotten larger. We have more teams. We do kind of welcome, those guys that, want to be a part of, who we are. I do think we built the, oh gosh, he's old school. So maybe if I were to go back, just kind of broaden the horizons a little sooner. But I don't know that that's, I don't think it's a bad thing that we waited as long as we waited. But I would probably broaden the horizons a little sooner. And then the Diamond Allegiance, in the short amount of time that we've been, a part of the overall program of the Diamond Allegiance, I think the number one thing for me as a person who most everything I do as a program director / coach is behind the scenes. I think parents and players and, maybe not even other coaches, but in our program, but, other programs, they don't really know what goes into what we do as program directors before the season starts. Yes, it's, scheduling and figuring out what tournaments to go to. And yes, it's making sure that the parents are all on board. And yes, it's uniforms and, it's tournament fees and all those things that are wrapped up into a program director's job. But it's also, building those relationships with other travel ball programs, which, kind of leads me to what we've done with Diamond Allegiance and being able to kind of bounce questions off of guys that are in Diamond Allegiance and not feel like, oh my gosh, like I have to keep my card so close to the vest that nobody can know what I do, and kind of have that building of camaraderie within the Diamond Allegiance has been big for me in the last 2 months.